Welcome back to another Know Your Foe, and this week we're bringing in CU peeps, and it's obviously it's a good friend of mine, Ryan Koenigsberg from DNVR Buffs. What's up, Ryan? How you doing today?
What is up, man? I'm doing great. Beautiful day here in Colorado, and about under 24 hours until we're on a bus to Tucson.
Yeah, the Stampede, the World Tour. It's fantastic, and folks. If you haven't gotten an opportunity to see it, well, lucky for you, they will be in Tucson this week. And even if you're not a Colorado fan, you should still swing by Bourbon and Bent. They're going to have the RV out there. It's going to be epic. It's such a cool experience, and honestly, I'm pretty jealous that these guys are able to travel the country to every road game for the Buffs. It's pretty cool. So check them out this week at Bourbon and Bent. But in the meantime, let's get to this matchup because it is. I know most U of A fans are excited about this matchup. I think they were far more excited before the season than they are right now. But I do think, Ryan, let's just start here. This is a threshold point, I think, for both teams. Arizona coming in at 3-3, 1-2 in the conference. You guys are coming in at 4-2, and you guys have had some nail biters. It could have gone both ways, obviously against K-State, obviously against Baylor. Do you agree that this is a threshold point, and this could take the season one of two ways for each team, depending on whether they win or lose?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, at least I'm just looking at it from the Buffs perspective. In terms of the goal of getting to the conference championship game and potentially winning the conference, I think it's absolutely an inflection point. It's one that you kind of have to have. I don't think though that like if Colorado doesn't win this game, like the season starts to tailspin. Like you lost last week to a team that you were dogs to, and your dogs again this weekend. You're probably going to be a favorite against Cincinnati at home. So, like in terms of the season kind of spiraling off the rails, I don't think this game is that important. But I do think in terms of like reaching their goals, this is one that Colorado really wants to have. As for Arizona, obviously you can speak to it a little better than me, but it feels like from my perspective, the fans are like looking for an excuse to say it's basketball season. And I think if they don't win this one, it'll definitely happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're not wrong. You're not wrong like that. I feel like every time the season starts to go off the rails, it's immediately like, all right, when's hoop start? Yeah, around here for sure. So I listen. I think for Arizona, obviously at 3-3, you go to 3-4. It is not favorable. But what I would say to counteract that is also, listen, you win this game, you start to feel a little bit better. And the second half of the schedule was always lined up to be much easier than the first half of the schedule. They just played, 3 out of 4 games that were just, they're tough games in Utah, BYU, and Kansas State. And now teams that you thought were going to be tough on the back half of your schedule are looking kind of soft. And UCF, TCU, you got Houston and West Virginia coming into town. So it's favorable. And I think this is the game that can kind of reset Arizona and get them back on track. Let's talk about Noah Fifita and Shedeur Sanders. When I watch both those guys, I think they both suffer from the same affliction in I don't trust my offensive line. And they both go about it two different ways, though. They both love to take those long drop backs and keep stepping back and stepping back and stepping back. But Shedeur will take the sack, whereas Noah will throw the ball over the middle and get it picked. Those two different ways. In terms of Shedeur, what are you expecting from him and this Colorado offense going against a defense that has not been able to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback?
Yeah, it's interesting because that's what we were also saying about Kansas State last week. And the reason I bring that up is because Colorado fell into a trap that they are used to falling into at this point, which is when things get tough, throw, 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 throw. And you can turn anyone's pass rush into a good pass rush if they know what you're going to do on every play. So what I'm expecting from Colorado's offense this week is a much greater focus on the run. It's kind of funny because here, in Colorado, we had this conversation after the Nebraska game, which is their other loss on the season, and they fell into that same trap. And then it was, okay, they're going to get back to the run. They're going to get back to the run. And they did for a few weeks, and they won all of those games. And then it feels like it slipped away from them again. I feel like they're going to start back on the okay, let's get back to running the ball thing this week. So I do expect them to focus heavily on running the ball. I would be surprised if they have less than 20 carries. I know that sounds like a low number, but they had 10 last week. So that's number one. Number two is like if you can get into that mode and you can protect Shedeur Sanders against a team that hasn't had a lot of success rushing the passer, he's going to go off. It's like you can, mark it down in your calendar. You protect him, he's going to deliver the ball on time. He's going to, make big throws down the field. So it's it's almost seems simple for Colorado. It's like protect Shedeur, win the game.
I mean, yeah. And listen, I don't want to hedge your bet, but I would. It's hard for me to believe that Colorado will not continue to throw the ball at a high clip, especially considering the secondary issues that Arizona has had because of injury. Gunnar Maldonado is out. Traden Stukes is out. And that secondary is kind of on the edge, but they have played above expectation even despite that. And last week at BYU, really, if Arizona's offense could have just been consistent, they could have been in that game and they could have even won it. But because they weren't consistent, they weren't able to stay on the field, and they had these, just gross errors. That's ultimately what cost them. Shedeur does lead the conference in passing yards with over 2,000. Noah Fifita is in the middle of the pack with at like about the 6 range. I expect Colorado to throw the ball a lot. I really do. I think that's their strength, and I think with the receiving core, it would be foolish of them not to. Do you expect Travis Hunter to play this week?
Yeah, Coach Prime said yesterday that he is. I think he said certain, or he should play for certain, something along those lines. So it sounds pretty good for Travis's ability to play. Jimmy Horn also went down and wasn't able to finish the game last week. He will play. The two guys who are out this week in the receiving core would be Omarion Miller, who had an amazing game filling in for those hurt guys last week. I think when he went down, he had 145 receiving yards. And then Terrell Timmons, who came in for Omarion Miller, ended up going down as well. So they had kind of a crazy run of injuries at wide receiver in that game. But the good news for them is they should have Travis and Jimmy both back this week.
Two of the top 20 quarterbacks in the country in terms of passing yards are Noah Fifita and Shedeur Sanders. But on the flip side of that, two of the top 6 receivers in the country are in this game as well, and T-Mac and Travis Hunter. It's cool because typically when we see wide receiver versus wide receiver, you'll never see them go against each other. But not in this case, because Travis Hunter will literally match up right across the field from T-Mac. Last year, T-Mac didn't have the greatest game, but he did have that one-handed catch in the end zone against Travis, which obviously you've heard so much about from us Arizona fans. This year, new matchup. Has anybody talked about last year's matchup from the CU side, and what do you feel from the CU fans and the team heading into this matchup, especially when you look at those two individuals?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always fun when you get these types of matchups. It's funny. Someone asked Coach yesterday about, did you get extra hyped when you went up against like Jerry Rice? And he was just like, no, that was just life for me. Like, that's like me asking if you got hyped to get in your car this morning. Like, you were just going to do it. And I think that's kind of how like Travis Hunter approaches the game as well. I see a lot of similarities in the way that they look at things. But at the same time, if you're trying to sustain a Heisman campaign, you know that these are big ones. You know that this is one that everyone's going to say, okay, well, how did you do against Tetairoa McMillan? And also, on the other side, Takario Davis. So, like, you're getting big time NFL on NFL matchups here, and these are the games that you want to show out. I am a little bit just interested and maybe a little concerned to know how, what percentage Travis is out. Obviously wasn't able to finish the game last week, and we still don't even technically know why, because they don't have to tell you in college. So, I'm a little, I just hope that you get the full Travis Hunter experience in this game. But as for the matchup, Travis has pretty much clamped down everyone that he's gone against this season. He definitely has not gone against a player of the caliber of T-Mac. So I'm super excited for that. As for the catch last year in the end zone, I actually look at that as like, yeah, that's the only way you can beat Travis Hunter is with a perfect throw and an unbelievable catch. Like you just tip the cap and say, yeah, that's the way you do it. So I the one thing I want to know is, are they going to travel him? Are they going to have him just say, wherever T-Mac is, I go? Because that was the way that this defense approached things last year. And, you saw that most of the work that T-Mac was able to do in that game was just offensive creativity, being able to move him around and get him into places where he could get a favorable matchup. So I'm curious to see if Robert Livingston says, no, we're going to man up, and it's going to be Travis on T-Mac.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think T-Mac has suffered a little bit just because of the lack of creativity on the offensive side of the ball and making sure that they can position him in a variety of different ways. I hope that changes this week. And more importantly, I think this is, listen, I'm not saying that T-Mac is like this at all whatsoever, but there's certain games, and this, and even if Deion says it's just like, whatever, I'm going up against Jerry Rice, it's no big deal. It's just whatever. Yeah, okay. But you just know that, like, when you look across the line and you see Jerry Rice in the moment, it changes a little bit in that moment, right? And I feel like the same thing's going to happen for T-Mac when he's been lining up across guys that are just they're good players, but they're not anybody special. And then all of a sudden, now it's Travis Hunter. This is the guy that everybody in the country has been talking about as a possible Heisman Trophy winner. They talked about T-Mac in week 1 like that, and then after that, he kind of fell off. And I think this is an opportunity for T-Mac to kind of get back into that national scene again if he can perform at a high level against somebody who a lot of people consider the best player coming out into the draft next year. So yeah. I love that in terms of the matchup perspective. Also, let's get to this before I let you go.
Really
Ryan.
quick.
Go ahead.
I just want to add in, I do think that it has hurt T-Mac not having a player of the caliber of like Jacob Cowing on the other side. And teams are able to key in. And I love Montana Lamonius Craig. He's a great kid. I loved him when he was a Buff, but he's not commanding the attention and the stress that Cowing was able to put on defenses on the other side.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's a variety of factors there as well. Like the offense has just not been able to be consistent. The way they have been positioning players, they've been heavy on one side. They'll isolate T-Mac on another. But the way I've seen this kind of play out, it just has not been as fluid a situation as it was a year ago in terms of like the consistent play calling. The play calling, especially in short yardage situations, has been really sus. And it's just that inconsistency to me, I feel like as a player creates a negative flow, a negative energy flow, because you want to feel like, okay, we got a rhythm going. We're in a nice little groove. I know exactly how I should feel out here. But for whatever reason, has not really carried over like that from this coaching staff. So I look for that to hopefully change this week, because I would love to see. I think this should be a shootout. On paper, this should be a shootout. This should be a 45-42 type of game. But because of Arizona's offensive struggles, I don't know if they're going to be consistent enough to be able to score high at that point. And also, listen, if they can apply pressure to Shedeur and company, then like you said, if they get pass happy, then the game changes again. So I don't know what to expect in this matchup. It's kind of a toss-up for me. I think either team could win, but I'll give the edge to Arizona, obviously, because I'm a homer, and they're playing at home more than anything else. Before I do let you go, though, ASU is our rival. That's undisputed.
As it should be.
But right there, right there, if you ask a lot of Arizona fans, who's the second team that you probably hate the most, it is CU. And it's been very, very interesting to see this kind of play out over the last couple of years, especially in the last 2, once Prime got to CU. Have you felt that same kind of animosity towards Arizona fans from the CU fan base as I feel from the Arizona fan base to CU?
No, I mean, it's there for sure. And I think, even longtime CU fans have like, some hate in their heart for Arizona, maybe even more focused on the basketball side of things, just from some of those good battles that they had when Colorado was rolling. Even going back to, the first Pac-12 basketball championship. But we're kind of used to this at this point. There's a lot of teams who would say like who do we want to beat most this season? It's 1, our main rival, and 2, Colorado. So we feel a lot of that. I think that, just being honest, it's been maybe a little more toxic coming from Arizona fans than just like Kansas State fans, for example. So that definitely
I mean, you can't compare anybody to K-State fans. K-State fans are the nicest people in the world.
I mean, anyone, Baylor fans, just throw anyone on there. But in general, I think CU fans are pretty used to this at this point. So it's definitely one that everyone wants to win. It even goes back to like Taylor Upshaw. He made some comments before last season's game, which kind of, I think, stoked the fire a little bit and built it up. But my question back to you is why? Why do Arizona fans have so much hate in their hearts for this?
Well, RK, I can only go off of my own personal experience, and it does go back to basketball for me. The first time I ever experienced a CU game was the year that Aaron Gordon played for us, and I was at that game, and just the amount of trash talking from CU fans going into that game, I was like, man, y'all would have thought that CU was Kansas, for crying out loud, the way they were talking trash. Fortunately for me, like, we beat the crap out of them that night by like 20 plus points, and Aaron Gordon had a sick lob and dunk. And I just felt like I noticed it more from CU fans at that point. To me, again, no offense to CU fans, but I felt like there's always been this little bit of insecurity to a certain degree, where like, pay attention to me, like we are legit, we want validation kind of thing. I get that from ASU fans too, so don't worry about it, ASU fans. And I could be completely wrong. Now, again, I'm in my own bubble with Arizona fans and how I view things. You're in your own bubble, seeing things from the CU perspective. So I get your perspective. I also get mine. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
I think with basketball, I could see that. Just because like CU has kind of been on the precipice of being a good, consistent basketball program for a while. So I think there has been a little bit of like hey, we're legit, like, give us our respect, give us our credit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone is asking for us to be paid attention to from a football perspective right now, because it's happening at such a high rate.
But I would disagree with that. I feel like we don't really see that from our perspective. I feel like every time it's always, listen, it doesn't help that every national outlet, despite Colorado's record, is always talking about Prime. They're always talking about Shedeur, and they're always talking about Travis, right? And even if they have 3 wins like they did last year, like, you're like, why do these guys get so much love? Like, I don't get it. Like, they're not a good team. And this is a team sport, right? That's where I think a lot of the animosity comes from, because at that time, you had Noah Fifita, T-Mac on our side that were balling out just at just a high level, as a high level, whatever that is. And they weren't getting any love whatsoever, right? And so I think there's a little bit of animosity there, but the Prime effect is a real thing. So.
Well, and what I think is interesting is, from a Colorado fan perspective, it definitely doesn't feel like, oh, everyone's just pouring love on Colorado. In fact, I think if you asked the average Colorado fan, they would say everyone's pouring hate on us. Mm-hmm. So I think there's 2 different kind of views from that. And obviously we do get a lot of love. And I think especially when we're having success, it's easy to talk about. And the reason is because it drives attention. It drives views. People know, I mean, you go look at like national college football services, like they're putting out a specific video on Colorado every single week, because they know that that's going to do thousands of more views than if they put it out on any other team. So I think it's a double-edged sword there. I do feel that from other fan bases, where it's like, oh, everyone just wants to talk about how great Colorado is. And Colorado fans are like, I feel like everyone wants to say we suck. So it's a bit of both. And it's almost political in that regard, where it's like, you got to go all the way to one side, or else people won't pay attention. If you talk about how much Colorado sucks, all the people that hate Colorado will come watch your video. And maybe even some of the people that like Colorado will come watch your video. Same thing is true if you talk about how amazing Colorado is. So it's very polarizing.
I think you just wrote the SEO for this headline. I don't know. We'll see. That's Ryan Koenigsberg from DNVR Buffs. Listen, whether you are a fan of CU or not, you got to go check out their pod. It is fantastic. It is one of the most viewed pods in college football. Point blank, it's undisputed. The numbers that you guys pull in are just utterly ridiculous. And I'm a big fan of you. You know that, homie. So I appreciate your time today. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Instagram. Follow DNVR Buffs on both as well. They're a fantastic follow. I will say good luck, but I hope you lose this week. And we'll see you Saturday.
All right, good luck to you. And since you got it in, I got to say I'm picking Colorado to win, and I think it's the defense, not the offense. I don't think it's as big of a shootout.
Okay. All right. You heard it there. Appreciate it, Ryan. Until next time, folks. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.